Damn, they move it all the time. All right, so let's go ahead and share some screen. Alrighty, and right, that one. Okay, so this is yesterday's. So let's go ahead and review a little bit before we move on. Make sure everybody's on the same page. V, what is 3604?
It gives the output in the on the console.
Right. And PC, what is 1806?
Disables the IFI.
Right. For the whole server?
In this one, it's for the session.
Right, exactly. V, what is 3004?
It gives the detailed process for backup or restore. It's like an execution plan for backup or restore processes.
Beautiful. All right, PC, one left. What's 3605?
Writes the outputs to error log.
Yes. And when would you use 1806, V?
1806. You want to disable IFI. It means your MDF files will be zeroed out.
Yeah,
first.
but when would you want to use that?
For testing?
Yeah, exactly. It's not of much use other than that, right? Or
Yes.
you could say for something like highly secure environments where you could have had some deletes going on the drive, and filling a big file with zeros will help overwrite those and make them more and make them less recoverable. But that's really such an incredible fringe case, and I really think that there are better ways to do that. But yeah, we'll just say for testing. And when would you use format? What situation would you use format in? I'll give this one to PC.
Yeah, to override the media family, backup media.
Right. And so when would you want to do that?
When we use the init to replace the existing ones.
Not necessarily, no.
So whenever we want to change the media family or the set
right,
for restore.
But practically, what does that mean? V, what does that mean on the ground?
Every time we do the backup, unless we are using striping backup.
Expand on that. I don't really understand.
Whenever we are doing the backups, we should be using init and format so that we have a like init will overwrite the data and format will overwrite the header. So
right.
We'll have a clean backup there. So that is one thing. But when we are doing a backup striping, at that time, I think format will.
Right. So
because we'll lose the information.
So the practical answer is whenever you change the number of files.
Yeah.
Right?
So, yes.
The real answer is what V said, always. Right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a trick question, but kind of not. Okay, who wants to show me how to turn on IFI?
Okay, I'll share.
Perfect. I was going to call on you anyway.
Security policy, local security policy. And then go to the local policies, user right assignments. It should be perform volume maintenance task. Yeah, it's here. And then add the service account with which SQL is running, and then it will be applied on SQL bounds.
Okay.
The
Excellent.
IFI will be enabled. If it is local, the administrator is already here by default, so it will be IFI enabled.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Very nice. And I'm going to share. I'm going to share again. I'm just that kind of guy. Alrighty, let's go ahead and move forward, shall we?
Yep.
Okay, so we are going to start a checklist. And I don't do this kind of thing very often, but I think with stuff like this, it's really good to have a solid checklist. And what we're going to do is we're going to set our checklist for how to speed up our backups and restores, right? So what we've got so far, we've got check for IFI. That's a nice big easy one. Check the log size, right? Why does the log size affect it? V?
The smaller the log is, it's faster to restore.
Okay. Why is that? PC?
Because IFI does not work for the log. It only works for MDF. The log has to zero out before it's there.
Right.
Restore.
Okay. Outstanding. You guys notice I can't drill this stuff enough, right? Because we'll come back in 2 months and you would have forgotten some of these details. Okay. So today we're going to talk about striping and buffer count. So I realize you guys know about striping. And I realize you know about buffer count, because not only have we talked about it in brief, but we haven't really talked about it in depth, right? So let's go back up here and let's speed up our backup. I'm going to do a copy only. In fact, I'm going to copy this and bring it down here. There we go. And I'm going to get rid of buffer count. There we go. And I'm going to stripe some. Now, when I do my striping, I really, really like formatting because it keeps things on track. So I like to format mine like this. See, everything's perfectly lined up. All I need are some commas. There we go. And you notice there's not a comma between the last one and the with, right? So I'm going to stripe this back up, and it's going to take it to 4 different files, right? Hello.
Yeah.
File names.
Yep.
File names.
We need to change the names.
Oh, okay. Okay. So if I were to do this, what would happen? Let's find out. Oh, look at that. It's being held by another process. Well, yeah, because I've got one thread writing to this guy and another thread trying to write to the same guy. Yeah, it's just not going to work, right? So let's go ahead and say 1. In fact, let me get rid of that. 2, 3. Oops. Well, that'll work too. And 4. There we go. Now, I believe I've talked to both of you about this before, but what's my favorite naming convention for striping files?
Yeah, one of one,
Yeah,
something like that.
exactly. I'm going to do it once, right? One of 4.
4.
And then I'll just take this guy right here and I'll say Alt select and V. There we go. So, because that just tells you how many files there are, and that's just always a good idea. So, but in classes, I usually don't do that, but I love to point it out for obvious reasons. Now, if I take this, will it run? Will it succeed?
It does.
Okay, let's find out. I just remembered I don't know the state of IFI. It looks like it might be turned off right now. So we'll have to fix that here in a minute and run it again. So how long you guys want to wait? Yeah. So while we're waiting for that, quick question. When I stripe, there we go. When I stripe, I'm also not showing the thing either. So I need to fix that too. Let me fix this real quick. Oh, 5. And then I'll come up here and trace off. Yep. Both of those. And now let's see what we got. There we go. So when I stripe, it's best to stripe to different disks, right?
Yeah, but yeah, it depends.
Okay, what does it depend on? If you say it depends, you
How
better know
fast
what
that
it
is.
depends on.
Yeah, how fast is your disk throughput?
Sure, but if you're sending it to 2 disks with the same throughput,
If you're not using the whole throughput, then we can put in the same. If you are maximizing the throughput with one file only, it's good to put in different drives.
right? V, do you agree with that?
I think with different disk it doesn't matter because backup is a serial operation.
Uh, yes and no. Man, look at the throughput I'm getting here, 1205. Yes and no. The answer is it's more about the number of streams that are writing. And I've had just as much success with striping them all to the same drive as I had to different drives. Now, in the upper echelons of tuning, right, you're going for, 8, 10 terabyte databases and trying to get those backups down to like 30 minutes, right? Yeah, you're going to be expanding out the number of files drastically, and you'll probably end up striping to different drives. But for the most part, no, it doesn't really make any difference at all if you put it on 1 drive or 5 drives. So here we've got 1205. That's a pretty decent throughput right there. As a matter of fact, you won't get that throughput in prod very often. Now, let's say I wanted to add more. At what point will it become diminishing returns? right? And what do we mean by diminishing returns, PC? What I have here, 55 seconds. Oops.
The backup getting slower.
Not necessarily getting slower, but
So the actual increase with the
Stable.
increase in the number of files does not happen as it is happening now in
right,
the
it doesn't significantly increase
proportionate
the
way.
speed.
Yes.
Right.
Right. So at some point, you're going to reach the point where you're throwing so many resources at it, and there's just not an equal gain, right? Let's take, for example, let's take a ludicrous example and say like you've got a 10 meg database and you're going to throw 20 files and 500 buffers at it. It'll take longer to spin up the resources than it will to just back up the database, right? I mean, 10 megs is nothing. So, you can overtune for sure, but you can also way undertune. And this is a question for the group. I have mentioned this to both of you before, and we'll see how many, if any of you remember it. How many files can I stripe? Is there a max? Nobody knows? Okay. You can go up to 64. That is a hard limit in SQL.
Okay.
All right.
I thought, is it anywhere related with the number of CPUs?
Nope. It's a hard limit in SQL. 64.
Okay. Okay.
At least it was in 2012, but I don't see them having changed that. But we could always test it. I tested it one day and it maxed out at 64, in which you get an error after that. Okay. So striping. How many files to stripe to? What's the rule? Is there a rule? Is there even a rule for that? For how many files to stripe to? So like, a lot of people say that a log should be, 1.5 times the size of the database, or, you should have this many VLFs, or you should have this, or you should have that, right? So is there a rule that you can use to figure out the size of the database and how many files that you should stripe to for optimal results? Any guesses? I know nobody wants to be the first one to be wrong. Okay, so
Not aware of any rule. Yeah.
right, I'll guess for you. You're absolutely right. There is no rule. That's the art part of this, right? And later on, when we get to a full tuning scenario, after we learn all of this stuff and I show you how to do a full tuning scenario, you're going to see that it's just hit and miss, right? But experience will show you that if you're backing up a 1 terabyte database, you can go well above 2 and 3 and 4 files, right? So my big rule in tuning, and I've got rules for enterprise management and I've got rules for coding, and this is one of my rules for tuning, especially with buffer count, which this is a segue into that, is go big or go home. So I see quite often people will up the buffer count to like 75, 100. Bullshit. That's nothing. You're still playing around, right? If I've got a 2 terabyte database and I want to back it up as fast as I can, we're talking 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 buffers and 10 or 15 files. I mean, you'll be backing that thing up really, really fast. So definitely go big or go home. And this opens up a whole new discussion, right, on how much can you tune? And this is an important part, right? Let's say that I've got a 2 terabyte database and I can back it up in 15 minutes by applying 20 files and 2,000 buffers. Does that sound like a good idea? I mean, 15 minutes, whoo, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Does that sound like a good idea?
The number.
What's the answer? PC, what's the answer?
Yep.
It depends,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the problem is you got to consider users, right? Because these backups take up a lot of resources, and they use a lot of disk, a lot of CPU, a lot of memory. And when they're highly tuned like that, then they will definitely affect your users. I have essentially locked users out of a database before because the resources just weren't there for them to be able to do anything because I was doing a fully tuned backup. So with that in mind, do you ever need to fully tune a backup?
Optimally.
What do you mean, optimally?
Whichever works for that environment, for the load that server is in.
Sure. But what's a situation where you could get away with fully tuning a backup?
During the downtime or the business hours where no one is using the server.
Absolutely, right? So you've got a scheduled downtime, you've got weekends off, whatever, right? And take over that server and get that backup done as fast as possible. So, which brings up another question. What about log backups? And so today we're not going to be really heavy on demo as much as discussion because there's a lot to talk about in this and I'm going down some rabbit holes. So how about logs? Can you apply this to log backups? Because remember, logs are sequential, right? So can you stripe a log backup, and why in the hell would you want to do that if you could?
We can stripe it.
Are you sure?
If it's serial, then what is the use of striping, right?
Now you notice I asked these questions in a certain way on purpose to confuse you, because I want to make you reason this out, right? So first and foremost, can you stripe a log backup? Yes or no? Best guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Absolutely. You're both right. The serial nature of the log has nothing to do with the backup operation, right? Nothing at all. Just because the log gets written serially, a lot of tables get written serially, right? So what? You can still dump all that stuff out. So what would be a situation where you would want to stripe a log backup or apply tuning to a log backup?
Log backup because of the storage limitation or size?
I'm sorry?
suppose you don't have enough space on a particular disk and you want to stripe it
Oh, I see. I see.
to
I
two
see.
different.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one reason. Is there any other reason? Let's say you got tons of space on your backup drive and you got no issues with that. All right, let's look at this. Let's say that I've got 100 DBs on a server, and I've got fulls, we'll say once a day, right? And I've got logs, every 15 minutes. Okay. And let's say
Okay.
that, and your recovery strategy relies on this 15-minute window. And so let's say that one of the databases has grown its log to, say 60 gigs because something went awry, or maybe the log backup's been failing for a while or something, right? But for some reason, it's like 60, 90 gigs. Do you think you're going to back up 60 gigs of log in 15 minutes? The answer is no,
No.
right? And especially, even if you did, you've already blown your window for the other ones, right? So now they're not being backed up. So now for this one time, they're being backed up, every 25 minutes, every 35 minutes, right? Depending on your disk and all that, right? So practically speaking, you can help keep it on schedule if you blow that out of the water with tuning and say, okay, I'm going to take my logs and I'm going to stripe it to 10 files. If it's a 60 gig log, I'm going to put it to like 5 or 6 or 10 files and use, 500 buffers, 1,000 buffers, and just get it done in like 5 minutes or 3 minutes, right? And then move on to the next ones. And if they're all tuned, then of course you're going to be able to you're going to be able to stay on schedule more easily. And this opens up another discussion. Why tune your backups to begin with? What do I care how long it takes to back up?
We take backups for safety purposes on any crash or something, and that definitely hurts our restores if they are not tuned properly.
What do you mean if they're not done properly?
Not tuned properly. If they're not tuned, if the backups are not tuned, the restore will be slower.
I see. So you're trying to say if you don't tune a backup, you can't tune a restore?
Almost.
Yes.
Yes, that's what you're trying to say. Now, is there a practical, and this is interesting, is there a practical space-related issue as to why you would want to speed up your backups? Let's say you got the same scenario you've got here. So, and let's say you've got 2 jobs, right? So while you're taking your full backups, your log backups are also able to go, right? For one thing, is that the case? If I've got 2 jobs, can I take a log backup while I'm taking a full backup?
We can take.
Yes, we can.
Yes. It didn't used to be the case, but these days it is. So, what if my backup is taking like 6 hours? And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it is, but it's the norm, right? For large databases to take several hours to back up. Is there a space related concern? Because I've got log issues, right? I mean, I've got to truncate my logs or they'll get too big, right? But I am taking log backups during that time. So is there a space issue? I'll answer this one for you. The answer is absolutely. Because while log backups do truncate the log, and we're using that idiomatically, right? While they do truncate the log, they don't truncate the log while a full backup is going on. Because the full backup has to include the active portions of the log as well. So when you're taking a log back, or when you're taking a full backup and you take a log backup at the same time, the log will be backed up, but it won't be truncated. So if you've got a 6-hour full backup, while you are taking logs that entire time, that log is also potentially growing larger and larger because of transactions that are going on at the same time. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can run into space issues just because your backups are taking too long. So with all this in mind, why doesn't Microsoft tune the backups by default? Anybody? Because
Tune.
their number one goal is to not affect user processes. So they use a very low level of resources so that you can run your backups and not affect your users like we talked about already, right? And that way you'll still get a backup. And I'm going to give you a chance to tune it. You can use all the resources you want, but not by default. So
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go ahead and run this with the 500 buffer count. We'll put that guy back in here right there at the end. And right there. There we go. Get rid of you. Get rid of you again. There we go. And let's see what we do. Real quick. We got 55 seconds at 12:05. So let's see what we do this time. And I think this database is only like 6.5 gigs. Beautiful. Look at our throughput. And look at that.
Yeah.
So we did improve some, right? Let's see if we improve any. What are you doing? Stop it. Let's see if we improve any if we up the buffer count. Let's do 1,000. Y'all think it's going to be faster, slower, the same? Any predictions? Quick.
Same.
Thank you.
Similar.
Similar. Okay. 43 for, yeah. So we haven't really, so we've hit a diminishing return on buffers. But what if we add more files?
Maybe gets faster.
So how many is that? That's
9.
9. Let's make it an even 10. And I suppose we're going to have to say for, actually, let me just do this. Oops. As long as they're different, it doesn't matter. Okay. Oh, I still need commas, don't I? Comma, chameleon. And go. Any predictions?
Should be faster.
If it is, it won't
Yeah,
be
it is.
much faster, huh?
Yeah,
It's same.
not much
Almost
difference.
same.
Yeah.
It'll same. Around 43. Yeah.
Yeah. So for this database, we've hit our diminishing returns, right? So we're not much better off than we were before. And when you start thinking about it, okay, we got like what, 56 seconds the first time and like 43 the second time, something like that, right? When you get right down to it, a few seconds, who cares? Right? I'm going to spin up all these resources for, 7 seconds, 9 seconds. Who cares? Ah, look at that. So we have definitely hit our diminishing returns. As a matter of fact, we've backslid a little bit, right? So this is definitely over-tuned. So definitely 10 files is no. So let's say, move it up here to, let's take away 3 files. There we go. And let's see. All right, any predictions? I'll take that as a no. Okay, so
Yeah, somewhere around 1500.
It will be,
Mbps.
yeah, it will be little bit of improvement.
okay, so buffer count basically accounts for how much memory is going to be used, right? The more buffers you
Right.
use, because everything in memory is faster. So the more buffers you use, the more memory you're using, the faster it can write. Man, this one's going to be close. 52, 1248. So we're kind of back where we started, right? I mean, yeah, we're kind of back where we started. So now let's do one more thing. Let's bring this back. And let's bring these guys back. Right there. Let's up this to 15. Faster, slower, what's it going to be? Because, we thought we maxed out our files before, but maybe we just didn't have the buffer count to support it. Let's find out. What do we have here? And I have no idea because it's not telling me anything, but it's probably a resource issue. Although it usually tells you that. Stop it. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Let's take it down to 12. Although, like I said, it usually tells you if it's a resource issue, and this box has tons of resources. But something is going wrong here at this upper level, right? So we've definitely reached our max. Whatever it is, we've reached our max. I'll try to see if I can, I'll see if I can chase this error down, but probably not. It's vague enough. I probably won't be able to find out what's going on. So you can see how tuning is just as much art as it is science. Yeah, you have to know how these things go, but at the same time, you know, a lot of it is just, you know, experimenting and seeing what's right for this server and what's right for this database. And then you're going to, at the same time, you're going to temper that around what's best for your users. So we're going to add these. So I'm going to add striping to our checklist because that's number one. And I'm going to add buffer count. Perfect. So striping, how does striping work really well without buffer count?
No, they are somewhere related. We need to find whatever works for that database.
Yeah, there's going to be a symbiosis in there, right? They rely on each other. Just like, you know, if you're doing, you know, buffer count of 2000 with one file, you know, your results are going to be very limited. So the resources have to be in balance, and finding that balance is what is what makes it art. Like I said, you get a feel for it at some point. You know, to a degree, you're going to say, I don't really care if it's fully tuned or not. It's really tuned and it's good enough, right? It's tuned, nobody's complaining, carry on. So we're going to keep this running checklist of things. And really, even before striping, we should have one thing. What should we check even before striping? I'll insert this in here.
Compression.
Right? Because if you're writing less data, right? So let's go back to the one we knew that worked. Was it 1,000 buffers or 500? It was 1,000, wasn't it?
1,000 it worked.
And
Can we
5
try with
files,
800
right?
and see? Okay.
Was it 1,010? Let's try 1,010.
Maybe 800 and put for 10 files.
And
How
then
do we
we'll
see that?
say compression. And let's see if it errors out the same as it did last time. Nope. And it's possible that compression is turned on globally. I'll have to check. So we may have absolutely done nothing at all. When that's done, we'll take a look. And yeah, that did all right though.
Yep.
And let's see, backup compression. Yeah, backup compression's turned off. It's turned on anyway, so we just did absolutely nothing. So, fine. All right, so we're going to end class today. and look at this stuff, become familiar with it. The quizzes are going to be, or I'll say the reviews are going to be cumulative. So keep studying the back stuff. And tomorrow we're going to talk about theoretical limits and how to discover your theoretical backup limit. And I'm going to turn off the recording now. Oh, there we go.